Welcome, everyone. I'm Chari Elam. We are the Bee Supply. And when I say we, it's because I have a super guest that is part of the Bee Supply as well. And that is Becky Barajas. She says her name much prettier than I do. And she's the new manager of the Round Rock location. Let me tell you just a little bit about the Bee Supply before I jump off to Becky and let her tell more about herself. So we've got 3 locations. We've got the Dallas area, we've got the Austin area, which is Becky and Round Rock, and then we've got Houston area in the Dayton location near Lake Houston. Becky and I are kind of part of I'm going to say a growing women in beekeeping. We are just two of hundreds of thousands of a truly it's a legendary part of beekeeping, the industry. You know, Jenny Atchley, if anyone's heard of Jenny Atchley, she kind of was the pioneer of all of us, but we really and truly have a place in this industry. And I was so thrilled when Becky was hired as the Round Rock manager, because because she was a woman, but she's an experienced beekeeper. Hi, Becky, welcome.
Hey. And thank you. I'm very blessed to be part of such a great organization and to fulfill another dream I've had in beekeeping.
Wonderful. Well, you've done a lot. So I've kind of seen your bio. So tell our listeners about you, about how Becky started and briefly how you started in beekeeping and how you ended up here in Texas.
So your beginning on women in beekeeping was a great segue. So about a little less than a century ago, the majority of beekeepers were men. And now I think the latest poll had it at 60-something% of women that were in beekeeping. And it kind of is the way that I got started. My ex-husband, he wanted honeybees to pollinate for our farm. And I looked at him and I said, wait, excuse me, we're going to buy singing insects. Like, are you out of your mind? Well, fast forward, we got our bees March 28th, a little over 10 years ago. And within 2 months, it became too hot for him to go take care of it. And so I donned the suit and I trampled up the hill and I opened the hive and looked down and said, I don't know what I'm doing. And so I started going to local bee clubs. I didn't know they existed. I didn't know there was conferences. I didn't know about the entire world at that point. And luckily for me, there was 2 people out of the entire organization of 50 plus people there that welcomed me and, hey, how are you doing? And
Awesome.
Why are you here, etc. And so I became very close to them. And one of them agreed to come by and show me what to do. And from there, it kind of avalanched. Over the last 10 years, a little over 10 years now, I have been a mentor to hundreds of beekeepers, and 80% of them still keep bees.
That's great.
I have sat as the president of a local bee club. I have volunteered for national parks in getting honeybee exhibits going and hives. Sat on the board of 4 national nonprofits, wrote for Bee Culture.
And about to write for the Bee Supply Monthly magazine.
Yes.
This issue that's coming out. Yeah.
Oh, no pressure, right? No pressure.
No pressure. Not to stop you, because I know you can go on. What a wonderful accolades you carry, and I truly I don't have all of your I wasn't part of a national board, but I'm kind of with you on this path. And we are part of a huge growing segment of the industry that is pretty amazing. When we were doing the classes in Dayton at the TBS in Dayton, I'm going to say the majority of the students that came into the class were women. And I don't want to make this all about women, because guys, hey, y'all started it. It's all good. But I will say the person that bailed on her, he was a weenie. I mean, he couldn't do the heat. Come on now. You rose above that, didn't you? That's awesome.
Well,
Well,
and I will say, so in Tennessee, this is all in Tennessee. I'm from,
Tennessee, yeah, it was pretty hot.
but it's pretty identical to Texas. And
Yeah.
I was a state inspector too. So I
Oh,
traveled
great.
all throughout looking
Super.
for anyway, so helping beekeepers is in my blood.
That's wonderful. And that makes you a perfect fit for the bee supply. And we're so happy to have you. So now that we've gotten that out of the way, I want to talk about bees. And so a lot of my visits with expert beekeepers go down the road of just talking bees in general, but I want to focus on honey extraction, honey yielding what I call the payback. You know, we invest so much in our bees all year long, and this is them paying us back for all of that time, that sweat, the money that we've invested. This is them giving us a little bit back to make us feel like we've actually done this for a reason other than just saving the bees, right? So
And for a lot of beekeepers, it's to help grow what they're already doing. They just want
true,
to have
true.
some sort of, gasoline for that fire.
Yeah, that's so true. Very true. So in along the lines of extraction, let's visit about that. So and not pinning this just to July, because we have a lot of viewers that are looking, will be looking to extract either early or later. So this could be anywhere from June, July to August that what we're talking about be applicable. So when you, in your experience, because I'm going to assume you have extracted a honey frame or two, do you, when you go off into the extraction, well, maybe let's back up, go into the bee yard. Do you have any tips or tricks? What is your method of going out, gathering frames and bringing them back? Let's just start at the beginning.
Okay. So a very interesting side note to my plus 10 years or tenure as beekeeper is that I am highly allergic. So I
There's that.
I wear a full suit, which is right behind me, just in case I need it here. But I wear a full suit. I have to wear big boots, and I look kind of silly. If you've ever met me, if you ever met me in person, I kind of swim in the suit. But yeah, so that's something I definitely have to prepare for. It has never deterred me. I love doing it, and I have not always had an anaphylactic reaction, so I just come prepared. And so one of my biggest tips and tricks is nitro gloves. Blake said it recently, and I swear by them. They make it so that you have a lot of dexterity, and you can easily grasp anything in the colonies. You can feel the bees, and when you can feel them, you're less likely to squish them. You're less likely to be careless or fumbly or klutzy, and I'm a klutz. And so I that's my biggest, be prepared, and nitro gloves.
So you wear just one pair or two pairs stacked?
One pair of 6 ml has been my favorites. They're double textured, so they're, well, I don't remember what the word is, but I can wear them on both hands, and they're textured front and back, so I get good grip. And they're 6 ml. So, I mean, the bees, they can sting through any glove. So I'd rather have the dexterity.
Well, and I could, yeah, it just went down, but we were working bees the other day and I got stung through my glove, and they're good gloves, but stinger wasn't stuck in the, I don't even know if the stinger was in the glove. It may have been, but not in my, skin. And this whole section swelled up and hurt like the dickens. So that's good to know that you're wearing that. So dexterity, that's kind of your first plan, to go in with dexterity to grab your supers off. So when you go out to the bee yard and you're fully suited, I'm with you on that. I do too, because I don't react well to stings. I'm not anaphylactic, but I don't, and plus I don't want to get stung. I mean, let's just get real. How do you pull the supers? Do you use a fume board? Do you use a skateboard fume board?
Well, so it depends.
Okay.
The golden grail of beekeeping, it depends.
Mm-hmm.
But I have had, most of the time I like to use I run 10 frames.
Okay.
The most colonies I've ever run is in the 40s.
Mhm.
And a beekeeper a long time ago said, if you ever say the exact number, it changes. So,
I mean, it's nearly day to day, right?
so I never say an exact number, but that was the highest number of colonies that I've had at any time is in the 40s. Right now, I'm double digits, but not quite 20. And so there's been times that my preferred method is the 10 frame fume board. And but I have in the past in a pinch because I try to be prepared. And sometimes you're not
Right.
expecting to have certain things. So in the past, I've taken a towel with a fume board spray and extracted that way. But my preferred method, if I can plan it out,
Is
like
the
this
fume
next
board.
time I'm gonna go is the fume board and a leaf blower. So
Yeah, yes.
I use the fume board to get 90% or more out. And we have a single hive stand, just a rough piece of wood cut up, set off about 5 or 10 feet from our main hive stand. We set it up sideways so that there's air between. And then one of us is working on the other colonies, and my husband, he's a beekeeper too. He's in his
Right.
third year. He's still
Right.
learning everything. And he'll grab the leaf blower if he's not working the colonies. He'll blow the rest of them out and use a telescoping top to kind of sandwich it in between to put it in the car. So, like I said, it's hard to drive when you're in a full suit. So
But
I don't like to have a lot of girls loose in the car if I can help it. And
no,
that telescoping covers, they come in handy to sandwich it nice and tight.
they do.
If it's only
They do.
if it's only a few frames, I'll just use a tote and I'll just
Mhm.
pull the frames and give them some empties if that's the plan for the day.
That's very, you said several points there that I want to really back up for you. Is number one, wearing your suit back in the car. Our mentor many years ago, about 12 now, told us to put your car keys on your windshield wiper, on your windshield, by your windshield wiper blade. And that way, when you have to get in your car, if whether it be quickly or what, if you've got your suit on, you can grab those keys to get in the car and go. You don't have to expose any portion to bees to get the car keys. So I thought that was great tip. But you sandwiching it between two telescopic covers is a great idea. We kind of do the same. We're fume board lovers, and just because I have to, because I absolutely love the new product, is TBS has come out with and it's our own in-house version of a new telescopic cover with 3 panels of plexiglass and black undercoating with that fabric on the fume board. This thing's phenomenal. It's crazy fast. Blake did a video. It's on our YouTube channel now. And it is super cool, super fast. So anybody looking for a fume board, it's a 10 frame. You and I both run 10 frames, but it would work for an 8 frame too, because we always corner it, right? Corner it, just not so we're not asphyxiating our little girls in there. But fume boards work wonderfully. I'm glad to hear that you do that. So once you get back to your, I'm assuming at home kitchen extraction, do you extract at home?
Yes.
Right,
Yes.
we do too. And before you pick up on that, just so everybody knows, you can be well into beekeeping and not be commercial. I'm very comfortable in my skin of where we are with, our place with the amount of extraction, which is quite a bit with where we are, but I'm okay with doing it in my kitchen and tearing things up for several days. How about you?
It's a little bit different in an apartment.
Oh, your apartment. Oh, dear. For now,
Yes.
for now.
Yeah, for now. But we make it work. It's all about planning and preparation.
Sure.
And when we get back to the house, the plan is to extract, The preparation is the understanding and the mental preparation. Everything will be sticky. As long as we're on the same page, it'll go smooth. But yes, we have a 4-frame extractor, and we have an uncapping tank that's kind of a redneck fashion that I created years ago. So we just, uncap and put them in there, but we plan, like I said, the key word of the day, plan. And the next day we'll bring those supers out. So while we're in the kitchen, they're kind of stacked up on canvas drop cloth or a plastic one, whatever we have. And it's a big old mess. But
It is a
it's
big
so
old
much.
mess. It is. You said you have we'll say homemade decapping bucket. We do too. And we made ours out of the bus buckets that you get from like Sam's and Costco. They're just the bus type that restaurants use, and they don't stack all the way together. There's a little gap in the bottom, because I know somebody's out there, how did you make it? How'd you make it? And we just drilled holes in the top one and then put a bar across that top, and then with a nail up in the middle. I think it's a screw actually instead of a nail. And then all of your cappings fall into the bottom of that top one and drain through to the very bottom one. So if you can't get a hold of a store-bought one, you can make your own cappings bucket, right? You've got one too.
Yep.
Excellent. Excellent. So how do you have any method? I saw the question I'm about to ask in a legend I use on different aspects for articles for the magazine, and also just for questions. But do you have any tips or tricks for reducing foam that happens in the honey after you've extracted it?
Patience.
Oh, that's a good one. I'll write that down.
Yeah, we put it in 5-gallon buckets, and we will just let it sit. And thankfully, we have a lot going on in our life for the most part at any given time frame of the year, spring especially. And so it'll sit in that bucket for at least a few days. And my husband, he'll get antsy, he'll want us, loves bottling. And favorite part, and I have to stop him because I want it to settle.
Yes.
So to get the foam, everything comes up. And as a side note, as an earmark to this part of the conversation, I want to remind listeners and watchers, try your best not to use cheesecloth. Cheesecloth leaves a lot of lint, and I show a lot of my honey and wax, and I've gotten all kinds of ribbons for that, from EAS down to the local fairs. And I lost a competition, one of my first ones, but I learned a good lesson, so it was not a failure. That not to use cheesecloth, because there was a small piece of lint that through their fancy light machine looked like a bee leg. And
or a branch, because under their lights, the way they do that, you're right. You're right.
So I would highly advise against using cheesecloth. I personally use just the cotton tea towels that I get at Walmart. I cut them in 4s for if I want that kind of filtering, but typically just a double stainless steel sieve.
Yeah, those work great. We carry them in the store. They really do work well. It's that stainless steel sieve. Anyone that hasn't seen one, it's got little legs that come out and sit on top of that 5-gallon bucket. So when you open the gate of your extractor, it just automatically goes through it. It gets the arms and legs and feet and everything out, and everything else really that's beneficial to be in the honey. It truly is.
And when it comes to the foam, when we pass that 3 to 7 day, usually with our schedule, it's about a week, if I can keep him out of it for that long. And my favorite, sorry,
It's okay.
my favorite way of getting rid of the foam, and it's easy peasy, is take a piece of cling wrap.
Yes.
And I'm going to open that bucket, cut a piece about yay big, the size of the bucket, put it down right on the honey, use my fingers on that backside and just make sure you get the edges really, really, really good. and then just peel it off. And you get about, I would say, almost everything.
Yeah, almost every bit of it. And that's exactly how we do it as well. And to take it one step further, I have found that if I grab it in the middle, I even take more. So you're saying pushing it around the sides. That's exactly right, because foam has this way of adhering to the sides of the bucket, and it gets on there, and it's kind of like in my tank that we have to clean our tank, warming tank every so often. It's like glue, isn't it? And truly, it's next to impossible to get off. So once you've used your finger, if you'll grab it in the middle, it'll pull it up. Of course, word of warning, have you a container right there. You don't want it to drip off into the bucket you're pulling it out of, because it's dripping foam. So pull it up really quick, put it off into your container, and you've got the prettiest top ever. I'm glad you said that. So on bottling, because and I don't know, everyone's different. I usually suggest that folks don't bottle until they're ready to consume it or ready to sell it to their consumer. And what we do, I've got a warming tank here in my office that when a customer calls, like today, and tells me how much they need, then we bottle it. And I put it out in our drop box, because we have a honey drop box. And that way it's staying high temperature in my warming tank, and it's not crystallizing in a jar. Our claim to fame on that lesson was 100 and I'm going to get caught misquoting this because I wrote an article about it. I think it was 110, maybe 106 plastic squeeze jars that we had bottled, and every one of them got rock hard, solid, crystallized.
Oh, no.
That was in probably 2012, 2013. You can't get it out. I mean, it was literally rock hard. So that's what taught me to only bottle as needed. Do you ever run into that problem with it crystallizing before you've sold it? I don't know if you sell or if you just give it away, but do you run into the problem of it crystallizing before you get it all gone?
Yeah. So where we have 4 out yards, which is another part of the planning. And these 4 out yards, 3 of them are within a 4-mile radius of one another as the bee flies, but that doesn't change anything about the planning. You still have to get back in your car and drive across another field.
Sure.
Where they're located is a big agricultural community south of Austin, or south of San Antonio.
Right.
And so it's about a 2.5-hour ride from the store to my personal apiary, and all around it is everything. Mesquite's really big down there, which is just starting to pop now, which is really interesting. Not as a huge side note, but we already double supered, and we're looking at adding 1 or 2 more this coming week. Woo! Based on what we're seeing. Oh my goodness.
That's
Last
wonderful.
year we had a trademark year of 217 pounds off of 10 colonies. This year is looking to trumpet.
I bet you'll be 500. I bet you'll be 500. Your area has been really in good shape.
Well, all around the apiary is mesquite, cactus blooms, which are just starting to come out now, and cotton, and that's the problem.
It is.
When we see that they've put in cotton, we're like, dang nabbit. And the reason for anyone wondering, cotton crystallizes pretty quick, close to rapeseed quick. The long going joke on rapeseed is it crystallizes on the way back to the hive.
That is so true. Totally.
Cotton is just a pain, just as much of a headache. And ours is that kind of weird mesquite cotton mixture, and every cell on the frame will be different. So we try to keep every frame separate. If it light, medium, amber, et cetera, when we're extracting, just so we can see, just a personal thing, like look out, this hive was right next to that hive, and it's a real good educational. But the cotton, we don't like to bottle, and like I said, he is like the king of bottling. He's the king of bottling.
There you go.
And but he loves doing all of it, all the processes. He's caught on real quick. But when it comes to the bottling, I have to be, honey, let's wait on these, sell these first. And we prefer to sell in glass,
We do
just
too.
for the customer.
Mhm.
The customer, if it does solidify too quickly, we give them instructions. Okay, you want to heat up a saucepan, don't let it boil, and then, take off the top, put it in off the heat, and you might have to repeat it a couple times. But
Mhm.
we also do something really cool with our customers. We give them the jar, we sell them the jar. If you return the jar to us, we'll give you $1 off the next time you buy honey.
Wow. Because
And
that's
we've
how
had
much jars are. I know I buy a bunch of them.
and we have quite a few return customers based off of
Great.
that alone, that we're not having to buy anything. We sanitize them when we get them back, even if they've cleaned them. So
Mhm.
we know they're good to go. And if it does crystallize, we like to use a bucket warmer, which
Mhm.
is just all right, Sherry, help me out here. I'm thinking
It's
like
just a strap of metal with a
yeah.
little sending unit, really, that sends that heat through little wires through the strap. It's like a belt, right?
And it doesn't heat it up past the point of the
No,
medicinal
no.
advantages.
Mhm.
Another for small batches. I know not everybody out there listening and watching has 15, 20, 30 colonies. Some only have one or two or a couple frames. Another idea for those listeners is to use a sous vide. And I love to cook, yeah, as you can tell. And a sous vide is just something that you can put into a container and heat it up to a certain temperature that you preset on a digital thermometer.
Right.
So you can really control the temperature of what you're trying to heat up. And that
Great
is
idea.
vital when you're trying to reliquefy honey. You don't want to lose that medicinal property, but you also don't want it to be uh, hard to get out.
Exactly. It's funny, I'm gonna take several things you said and make a whole nother topic out of it. So we'll take honey, and then the device you just talked about. What is it called? What's
Sous
it?
vide,
Souvei. How do you spell that?
SOUS,
So
and then a
US.
separate word, VIDE, I believe.
Oh, wow. Souvei. That's a new one for me. I've seen a device, but I didn't know what it was called. So cotton honey, talking about crystallization, cotton honey has crystals that are huge. That's when it's primarily cotton honey. And that's one thing that you can know what if you are exposed, if your bees have been exposed to that being part of their forage, is the crystallization of cotton honey is almost like rock candy. I'm exaggerating some, but not a lot. It is huge, and trying to reliquefy that is difficult because if depending on where you are in the solidifying of that 5-gallon bucket, it can become a real problem. So your sous vide could be used in advance of it getting too crystallized. I
And
think that
I
would
might
be
be saying it
something.
wrong, but people will
No,
find
sounds good to me. I mean, I'm shoot, French is not my Texan is my first language. I hear and talk that way. So just that's wonderful suggestion. And I love that patience was your answer of how to wait for foam. I love that. Absolutely love that. So we already addressed that we use a strainer preferred over filtering, and that we don't want to use a cheesecloth because of lint. Lint's a big deal, especially those that are preparing for honey contests, which a lot of our smaller scale beekeepers, they've got the time. The commercial guys are too busy, right? But we've got the time. I've got a few ribbons in this one over here in my credenza as well. I'm proud to say we were blessed with some of those. But you really do want to make sure that the area that you're doing your extraction is super clean. All states have different rules and regulations of what that you need to follow for doing extractions. Texas is one of the states that I don't want to say it's a free for all, but we pretty much can, as long as we abide by the safe food handling rules, we're pretty much good for the go. And I use the phrase of, I want to extract in a condition of what I would want to purchase a food from someone else in the condition they used. So
Yes.
put the same on me that you would put on somebody else for a food for yourself. So let's move on. So a byproduct of honey extraction is wax. Okay, so wax cappings. And I can personally say that it takes forever to get enough off of that thin little capping to make bulk wax. But once you do, it's wonderful. So tell me your take on wax cappings, what you do, how do you gather enough, or do you supplement with other beekeepers' wax? What do you do with wax cappings?
So wax cappings are considered a higher quality than regular burr comb or wonky comb or wax in general. And so I like to keep that separate. It's usually a much lighter color than the other waxes that you're going to render. So if I have to, I'll put it in a baggie once I've gotten it down. And my process for that is relatively simple. I get it, scrape it up, clean it up, put it into clean nylon. That seems to be the easiest way I found to do it, to wash it in the sink and our bucket. And I just wash it. And that is very critical to the rendering of wax. For one simple thing I learned the hard way, if you don't, any honey residue that you have left in that wax is going to create this really gritty kind of sand, and it ruins it. So yeah, very, very, very
Washing
critical.
your cappings, I'm so glad you said that, Becky, because this is imperative, y'all. Wash your cappings, truly wash them with water.
Cold water.
Cold water, yeah, not hot water. Not hot
Don't
water.
use hot water.
Not hot water. I'm glad you said that. Yeah, cold water. We use a strainer, not the sieve, but we actually have I think it's a 400 micron that y'all have in the store. I just put them in that and rinse it off in the sink. It rinses so quickly. But yeah, so washing them off. Wash them off.
And if I don't have enough, and this is when I first moved to Texas, I had to sell everything. It was in the middle of winter. And if anyone's ever moved bees, they know the bureaucracy and red tape that can go along with that. So all my colonies went to a great cause that helps brand new beekeepers, especially kids, get involved. So I started all brand new. And we started with 2 nukes. And I was very blessed to be able to bring a lot of equipment with me that had never seen bees, but it's still starting new, finding, someone that sold bees and all the things related to that. Right. But so I have experience in Texas and Tennessee in starting from scratch. And I know, like, sometimes you just don't have enough. You might have this much wax cappings, or you have this much. Mm-hmm. So putting it in, you can squish it down. You can make it into a little ball, put it in a freezer baggie, toss it in the freezer, write wax on it, or your husband, significant other might think it's something else. And then when you're ready and you have more, you can just keep building up until you have enough. But I like to use the cappings for body items, salves, butters, chapsticks, lotions, anything that's going to go on your skin is best. Yep. As a cosmetic, it's cosmetic grade is what capping wax is considered. So, that's what I like to say for that. My burr comb, same thing. I have a baggie. I bring 2 baggies out with me to the field every time I go in the apiary, one for propolis, because this much means nothing, but this much 100 times, you got a big ball. Right. Burr comb. If there's real burr comb and I'm just like, all right, I got time, scrape off the top or bottom or wherever they decide to put it. I'll put it in a baggie and stick it in the freezer until I have enough to play with it. But
And you
write
know
on
what?
it.
And what?
Yeah, make sure you write on the bag.
Yeah, make sure you know, and of course, you'll know the look, which is the cappings and which is burr comb. So burr comb's so much darker, brood comb typically, because that's either drone comb typically on the top between the boxes and somewhere offshoot, like you say, wonky comb or what. But what we tend to do with our burr comb is wax frames because it doesn't melt very well. It kind of melts a strange sludgy type thing. But it works all right when you kind of ours. Well, maybe it's because ours is really old. I can say that some of our burr comb is super old, and frame and frame and frame after years and years and years. They really that it just gets almost like you said gritty a while ago. But you can use that, render that down and use it to rewax frames. It works great for that. That's
Yep.
good stuff. That's really good stuff. So storing, and I'm with you on the freezer, the bags. I know that taking it way back in the beginning, after about 2 years, I think, of collecting, I had a gallon Ziploc bag, and it looked so full. And I thought, I'm going to melt this down and I'm going to make something, because we were new beekeepers 2 years in, right? That's before that 3-year magic mark. And I melted it down and poured it into the metal chafing dish, the foil kind that you throw away. And it literally was about a 1/4 inch thick, that whole baggie. And I thought it was like a cookie. Kidding, all that time and all those cappings, and that's it. It does take a lot to really amount to a lot. It really does. All right, that's my part of that. So I want to get to high moisture because we're about out of time. We really have gone long, but this is so good. I love talking about it with you. So high moisture, how do you deal with high moisture in your honey?
Well, the very first thing is to know what high moisture is. So
Ah,
high moisture, high
good.
moisture,
Start there.
even if your bees have capped 70% of each side of that frame that you pulled and you're uncapping and you're all excited, you're like, well, it's capped, so it's got to be below that magic number, which is in theory correct. However, we have to remember that honey is very hygroscopic. So it's going to pull the moisture from the air. So if you have a humidifier going, or if we have a storm rolling in, or anything like that, it can change it pretty darn quickly. So I use my refractometer to see exactly what that number is, to know whether or not I need to take the next step. If I do need to take that step, I will find a closet, which I can't do at the apartment because everything is full. But I have a wonderful family, in-laws that have, a little bit more room than we do. They're usually happy to oblige and just ask them, hey, can we borrow a closet for a week? A week is pushing it, for time, but it shouldn't take longer than that. And we'll put them in there with the buckets. I like to use a piece of screen over the top, just in case anything were to just fall in, and put a dehumidifier in there. And then I'll check it every day or two and see what it's at. When it sits at the right number, take it out and get going. But if the moisture content's too high, or if someone doesn't want to fool with that, there's another option. It's called mead.
That's true. That's true. And you could sell it to mead makers if you don't do that yourself. That was good points. The closet just kind of, so it stays in its own little small space. You're not about trying to get that moisture out of our 120% moisture in Texas that we tend to have. A suggestion that I've got on that is we had taken one of the easy off lids off the 5-gallon bucket, because you can get those easy off lids, and we cut a circle in the middle and put a filter on top of it. So that way it's open, or a screen would work too, but that way it's open and it's breathable. We can just pop it down on there and we just move it from bucket to bucket to bucket. An ice cold air conditioner, if you've got a room window unit type, somewhere in your house that's got a window unit, cranking that thing down to 60 degrees, run that for about 24 hours. That'll drop that, that honey moisture like that. What is that? I know, but let's just tell everybody, what's what's your optimum moisture content of honey?
Correct me if I'm wrong, 18.5.
We just say around 18%, 18.6, something like that.
I'm
No,
rusty.
you're
I haven't
fine. No,
looked since
that's
last
it.
year.
That's it. That's it. I know that the first honey contest that we entered, I don't remember what year it was, 2014, I believe. I learned that contests typically will disqualify you if you're over 18.6. Some are going to be different, but the one that we had entered at that point was if you were over 18.6, you would be disqualified. So no one quote me on that. It could be different in your area, but 19%, anything over 19%, you're going to start running the risk of fermentation. And if it starts to ferment, like Becky said, it's just going to turn into your version of an unplanned mead that's probably not done right. So we don't want that to happen. And when you know that's happening, your honey gets an unusual odor and it may start being foamy on top. And if it has a little bit of a bite, that could be it. That definitely could be it. Well, Becky, we're going to have to stop. I hate this. We may have to revisit. We may have to do that.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Well, I invite everyone to come see Becky at the Round Rock locations, our Austin area store, DB Supply. She's our experienced boots on the ground there, and we've got lots and lots of great compliments already from the store. And is there a closing, anything you'd like to part everybody with, a beekeeping knowledge that you can think of?
You are never a failure if you learn something. If you learn something, you are never a failure. And if whatever you want to do in beekeeping, that's what you should do. And find the people, find your tribe. And even in beekeeping, everyone has their own opinions, their own thoughts. And just listen, learn, and then make your decision. And if you'd like the support, come to the Bee Supply. We will always have.
Great words, great send off. Thanks, Becky. Thanks, everyone. Good to see you.
Thank you
We'll
all.
see you again. Bye.
Bye.